Hi there, Megan here. I wanted to do this mini training. We're gonna try to keep it as short and sweet as possible because I really wanna get to the point here with one of the issues that comes up for a lot of clients and just women who I talk to on a regular basis, and that is constipation. So I'm gonna share my screen with you so that you can see everything that I'm going over. And from there, you can decide what strategies you're gonna implement if you're somebody who struggles with constipation. So constipation is a problem for a lot of reasons. And it's not just because it's inconvenient and uncomfortable. There's actual physiological changes that happen, especially with chronic constipation. So if you're somebody who has been constipated for days, weeks, months, even years, then that is definitely problematic and will show up in other ways that seem to be unconnected, but they are actually very, very connected. So just touching on why regular bowel movements are important in the first place, the big one that we see with a lot of clients is the gut hormone connection. So your daily bowel movements is your body's way of getting rid of excess toxins. And if those toxins are not getting rid of, it's going to build up, it's going to be very stressful for the liver, and it can also lead to estrogen dominance. So that is when estrogen is excess in is too high in relationship to progesterone. So excess estrogen can show up as a lot of period pain, so heavy periods. And if you've ever gone to your doctor for that, maybe they've just put you on birth control without addressing that imbalance of estrogen to progesterone. Period migraines is really important. There is a big symptom we see as well. And also migraines around ovulation. If you are tracking your cycle, which you should be, and you know when you're ovulating and you get headaches around ovulation and other symptoms, you should feel really good around ovulation. But if you're having like cramping or headaches or even like body aches and things like that, that's a sign of excess estrogen. PMS symptoms, so those like 10-ish days leading up to your period, you're feeling really miserable. Digestive issues that also get worse around your period. So you might feel a little constipated leading up to your period, and then you have diarrhea and really loose stools on your period. So those are just some of the signs and symptoms of estrogen dominance. There are much, much more. But if you are not having daily bowel movements, it will likely lead to this imbalance. We also see this isn't written out here, but with thyroid issues as well. So if you are not going to the bathroom every day, your gut bacteria is really important for the conversion of thyroid hormones. And so if you're not converting those hormones from inactive to active form in the gut, then you're going to likely struggle with a sluggish thyroid, or it could potentially even lead to hyperthyroid symptoms. Also, constipation we see correlate highly with headaches and migraines. Also did not mention this here, but I'm going to add it. So there is the gut mood connection. You obviously feel a little bit crankier when you're constipated, but for those dealing with a lot of anxiety and even depression, we see this often correlated with digestive issues in general, but especially with constipation. Dysbiosis, that's another big one. So if you're not going to the bathroom every day, this can lead to a buildup or overgrowth of opportunistic bacteria. So things like candida, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, infections, parasites, things like that. That can then lead to even more digestive issues. And then lastly, constipation is a symptom of a larger gut dysfunction. So this could be low stomach acid. This could also mean that you're likely not absorbing nutrients, which then can lead to nutrient deficiencies. So vitamin A, vitamin D deficiencies. Maybe you've been told you're anemic or deficient in iron, B vitamin deficiencies. Lots of things that can come from this gut dysfunction and just not being able to properly break down your food. So we know why having daily regular bowel movements is important for your mood, your hormones, your nutrient status. Now I want to touch on what is actually considered normal, because a lot of people think it's totally fine to not poop every single day, and it's very problematic. So you should be going between 1 and 3 times per day. It should not feel difficult to pass. So you sit on the toilet, go to the bathroom. Maybe it takes like 3 to 5 minutes and then you're done. You also are having complete bowel movements. So If you're going every day, maybe you're even going like 5 times a day, but it's never complete, like you don't feel as though you passed everything, that is still considered constipation. And we also see this showing up as loose stools. So you're going to the bathroom, you're having loose stools, but you're still having to strain a lot to get that out. That would be considered constipation. And then in terms of your stools, you want the consistency to be either a 3 or a 4 on the Bristol stool chart. You could just Google that and the picture will come up right away and you can see what looks normal. Some common mistakes that we see whenever people address constipation. The biggest one is just adding more fiber. People say like, oh yeah, I probably just need to add more fiber. And that is true on a very foundational level for the standard American who is not eating a single vegetable, doing a lot of fast food, eating highly processed foods, things like that. But if you are just trying to increase fiber more, that will likely lead to more bloating, more fermentation in the gut, and it will not fix your constipation. So we have to be aware of that. You want to get between 25 and 30 grams of fiber a day. So, if you're at 5 to 10, yes, you could work up to that, but more fiber is not necessarily better. And in fact, doing a lot of raw vegetables and salads and things like that can be more difficult to digest. And if your body's already struggling to digest food for other reasons, then it's actually going to put more stress on the digestive system. Overhydrating is another common mistake. And these are like ones that we see more common in women who are trying to be pretty healthy. They're very health conscious. So drinking a gallon of water a day or like 100 ounces of water a day is going to dilute stomach acid and enzymes and things that we need for proper digestion. Also, if you're chugging a lot of water with your meals instead of actually digesting your food, then that's going to lead to not only constipation but also bloating. So you don't want to overhydrate. The sweet spot is half of your body weight in ounces, and then adding in minerals, which I'll talk about in a second. Not eating enough, and this is difficult because if you're constipated, you don't want to eat more because you know that if you eat more, you're still not going to go to the bathroom, and it feels like it's just kind of building up inside of your stomach. But when we're not eating enough, this puts our body in a state of stress, and when our body is stressed, we are not going to have regular daily bowel movements, and that's really one of the biggest underlying root causes that we'll talk about in a second. Relying on miralax, or if it's a little bit more of a functional, like, okay, you're not going to do over-the-counter miralax, maybe you're doing magnesium citrate, you don't want to and should not have to rely on that. It's okay every once in a while if you're really struggling, you're under a lot of stress, maybe you're traveling, something like that, but you don't want to be relying on that. And then also, the last common mistake I see is just people taking random probiotics or thinking that just because they take a probiotic, that therefore will fix their digestion. Your probiotic should be customized, it should also be spore-based, and if you have other underlying gut issues going on, the probiotic might make symptoms a little bit worse. So just something to consider, and why it's best to work one-on-one with a practitioner if you're having more signs and symptoms of gut dysfunction. Okay, let's get into the steps now. So we're going to touch on root cause first and foremost. Like everything, we have to look at why is this happening in the first place, right? It's not a miralax deficiency. And so we need to look at what is causing this and ultimately address that. But then I want to give you some actual strategies and tools. So when it comes to strategies and tools, the way that I like to break it up, and this is with a lot of things, whether it's for addressing cravings or PMS, period issues, transitioning off birth control, even losing weight, all of these things, we have to look at foundations. What are the things that we need to be doing fundamentally? And then tools, which the tools are like the cherries on top of those foundations. A lot of people skip the foundations, they go to the tools, and so they don't see long-term relief, or they feel like nothing is working. For example, following a restrictive low FODMAP diet, you take out a bunch of foods, but you're not addressing the foundations in the first place. That low FODMAP diet is not going to be a long-term resolution. Okay, so understanding the root cause. So big one is stress, and I know this sounds very arbitrary or vague when we just use that word, but stress can come in a lot of different shapes and forms for especially the female body. So this could be from not eating enough, which we just touched on, really being in that fight or flight mode. So maybe waking up, skipping breakfast, having coffee, getting straight to work, running around, doing errands, being a people pleaser, like trying to do everything else for everybody but yourself, not prioritizing yourself. There's also environmental stressors that we're dealing with. And then there's what we think about, like financial stressors or relationship stressors. Even if you have some sort of like loved one who you're taking care of because they're sick, kids, elderly parents, things like that, that's a stressor. And so really anything, whether it feels challenging in your own brain or not, right? So if you're doing something and you're like, this is fine, I'm used to it, I do it day to day, it's, you know, something I've always done, I can handle it. Just because your mind is interpreting that way does not mean your body is interpreting that way. So to your body, it is still a stressor. And so it's important to distinguish between that. And with a lot of women, we really have to dig deep and pinpoint what are the stressors we're dealing with without even realizing it. From a nutrition standpoint, this stress usually comes in the form of riding the blood sugar roller coaster, not eating adequate calories, or just not getting the right like nutrient dense calories, and then over exercising as well, especially doing a lot of cardio. And some people will tell me that they feel better and they have better digestion if they exercise, and that is true up to an extent. So it's kind of like an inverse U curve where there's a sweet spot of moving your body to have regular daily bowel movements, but not so much that it's increasing cortisol, increasing stress, and will then cause constipation. So if you're doing Orange Theory at 6 a.m. or even at 5 p.m. after a long, stressful day of work, or maybe you're doing CrossFit every single day of the week, these things are going to be interpreted as a stress in the body. So it's not necessarily that positive movement that we're looking for that will support digestion. Another huge root cause is under eating this because it can lead to other issues. One, it's a stress on the body. Two, it can lead to that hypothyroid state. And three, if you don't have enough food coming in, you're really not going to have enough food going out, and you're not going to be getting the amount of minerals that you need from a diet that is 1,500 calories. So unless you're literally eating the most nutrient-dense foods, but if it's only 1,500 calories, chances are you're not. And so that is another big issue we see. Pelvic floor issues. So this is something a little bit more structurally that's going on. And for that, I definitely recommend seeing a pelvic floor specialist, and they can evaluate that for you. Slow metabolism. So when your metabolism is slower, everything else slows down, including your digestion. And this can lead to bacterial overgrowth. This can lead to low energy. It can lead to weight gain for some, low body temps, low pulses, issues sleeping, things like that. Those are big red flags for slow metabolism. And hypothyroidism. So if you've done a full lab panel, full thyroid panel, not just TSH, not just T4, you've gotten active thyroids measured, antibodies measured, all of that, that is how you know where your thyroid status actually stands. So we recommend doing that, and we do that with our clients, especially if there's all these other issues going on. Low stomach acid and low digestive function, so you don't have the enzymes or the bile to properly break down food and fats and proteins. So if you get nauseous after meals, if you, especially high protein meals, if you have any sort of like greasy stools, that's a sign you're not digesting fat well. If you have reflux or any upper GI issues, that's a sign of low stomach acid. If you're on PPIs, this is very problematic, especially if you're on them for long term. So that's another common issue we see. And stomach acid is usually lowered as we get older. So the older you are, the lower your stomach acid production is, which just means that you have to be more proactive about supporting your stomach acid. And then it's also low whenever we are in a state of stress or in that fight or flight mode. Low carb diets, even keto diets. So if you're low carb, below like 75, 50 grams of carbs, this can lead to constipation. We see it a lot with women because at first they go low carb, they lose weight, they have energy, and then over time things start to slow down, especially with their thyroid and the production of good gut bacteria that we get from carbohydrate sources. And so this can lead to constipation as well. bacterial imbalances and overgrowth, and these really come as a downstream effect of all of these things up here. So things like candida overgrowth, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which takes place in the small intestine. We see H. pylori infection, which inhibits the production of stomach acid, and other opportunistic bacteria that are overgrown and cause not only constipation, but also diarrhea and bloating and other inflammation in the body, skin issues, body aches and pains, things like that. Low minerals. This is a huge one for a lot of women. Minerals are depleted when our bodies are under stress, so we can go back to this first root cause of stress. But also if you're not being pretty diligent about getting mineral-rich foods in, which does not come from, protein bars and chicken breast and salads and things like that. A lot of those like quote unquote healthy kind of foods that a lot of women with their busy day to day will be eating, we're not getting the minerals that we need. So we need to work on mineral status, which supports your metabolism, which supports your thyroid, which will then support your digestion. And then also physical structural issues that take place with so endometriosis, which is an autoimmune condition. A lot of people will try to address this as a hormone imbalance, and they will go on birth control, which does not get to the underlying root cause. So endobelly is really common, where you feel super bloated and have a lot of digestive issues, reactions to things like gluten, processed dairy, or if you've had other surgeries as well. Getting your gallbladder removed is a big one. So if you've had your gallbladder removed, you definitely have to be supplementing actively with some ox bile or other surgeries. So all things to consider here. So we kind of understand, and you can maybe start gauging like what is the root cause. And if you need help figuring this out, this is where we look at your health history and we start to like kind of figure out what that timeline looks like and put the pieces together. The most common connection we see is with women not eating enough, having thyroid issues, having sluggish metabolisms, leading to that bacterial imbalance, and then having the constipation. So what can we do? Addressing things on a foundational level. So these are the ones that, like, if you Google how to improve constipation or you're searching a very basic article, you might see these things. So hydration, that's a big one. Drink enough water, but what I'm emphasizing here is not to overdo it. So just drinking more and more and more water will make you feel worse. You want to find that sweet spot. And the key really is adding in minerals so that you get better hydrated. So even if it's just one time a day, you do mineral drops. We like concentrates mineral drops. You can do, and this, I'll talk more about minerals in a minute, but LMNT or Relight or Jigsaw has a really good mineral blend, so you can add those to your water as well. And we'll talk about mineral mocktails a little bit more, so I'm going to save it for that. But that's all I'll say there. So more water isn't better, but you want to make sure you're doing half of your body weight in ounces. Second, good meal hygiene. And this is foundational because you cannot be eating in a stressed fight or flight state, not chewing your food thoroughly, eating while you're driving, eating while standing up in the kitchen. You can't be doing that and expect the probiotics or the supplements or the magnesium or these other tools and strategies that are kind of at the top of the pyramid to work long term. So you have to practice good meal hygiene. So getting in a rest and digest state, which means sitting down, not multitasking, you're not driving, you're not standing, you're focused on that meal, and you carve out at least like 15 minutes. It could be less, but 15 minutes to actually eat your meal so you don't feel like you're rushing. Stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system, so that's your rest and digest state. Sympathetic is the fight or flight state. So in order to do that, you can stimulate your vagus nerve. A great way to stimulate your vagus nerve is actually humming or gargling, so you can do that before your meals. Deep breathing, so before your meal, even just taking like 5 deep breaths, you'll feel your body shift into that relaxed state. And then having positive thoughts and expressing gratitude when you sit down to eat your meal, that's huge. Digestion starts in the brain, so if you're sitting down eating the food thinking, this is bad, I shouldn't be eating this is going to cause digestive issues, then the chances of it causing digestive issues are highly likely, versus I'm so grateful for this food. I'm excited to relax and enjoy this food. And I know that my body has the ability to break this food down properly and nourish me. So that shift in mindset is really important for getting into that parasympathetic state. And then chewing your food very thoroughly. So digestion starts in the brain, but then second to that is the mouth. So mastication, which is the chewing of food, that is actually what breaks down carbohydrates. You need to break those down in your mouth with the salivary amylase. And if you skip that, then it gets to your stomach and it's not broken down. Your stomach doesn't have teeth. So then it can start to ferment and cause further issues down the line, including all the way down to your large intestine, and then leading to constipation. So second foundation, eating enough foods consistently and throughout the day. So if you have not yet prioritized regular meal times, 3 solid meals, snacking when you're hungry, and even if you're not hungry and you know you're under eating and it shows up as overeating in the evening, or waking up at night and feeling hungry, or waking up at night and having the impulse to go eat, that's a sign that you're not getting enough calories throughout the day. So you have to break that cycle by getting enough calories consistently and throughout the day. And you'll likely be less likely to overeat later on too. So if you're scared to like eat more with breakfast, I would encourage you to start there and experiment with it, because once your body realizes it's getting what it needs, cortisol is lower, and you're having those regular daily bowel movements, you're sleeping through the night, you're going to feel so much better. And eating enough foods consistently is one of the foundations for a healthy metabolism and thyroid hormones as well. So you have to be doing that. And then keeping blood sugar balanced. This is the key for energy, reducing cravings, healthy metabolism, and supporting good digestion. So basics here, we have entire trainings on blood sugar balance, but eating enough quality protein from animal sources, good quality carbs, healthy fats, and fiber each meal. So picturing that build your plate guide. And then from there, we want to focus on sources that are easy to digest. So for carbohydrates, we want to do cooked vegetables. So you're not doing a bunch of raw salad, you're cooking your vegetables, roasting them, sauteing them. I like to steam them in like a little bit of bone broth. And then fruits, root vegetables, and tubers like potatoes. So you can do also squashes, butternut squash, things like that, winter squashes. All of those are great carbohydrate sources that are easier to digest. If you're doing a lot of like grains and legumes and beans and chickpeas and lentils and things like that, I would encourage you to experiment with it and pay attention to if it causes more bloating and more constipation. Again, more fiber isn't necessarily better. And instead focus on getting your carbohydrates from those fruits, those root vegetables, and those tubers. And that naturally eliminates gluten as well, which can be problematic for a lot of reasons. So that's something to experiment with if you have not already. Fermented foods, so adding these in, sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir is great, either like a coconut kefir or water kefir. Really anything that says live active cultures. If you're doing like a yogurt, make sure it doesn't have other added ingredients in it, because those can cause digestive issues, right? So we want to avoid, like, if there's a example of a dairy-free yogurt, but it has like gums and artificial sweeteners and things in it that can cause more digestive issues, then we don't want to be doing that. Fermented foods like vegetables and sauerkraut is really the safest bet and the best way to go. And I recommend this foundationally before playing around with adding in like more expensive probiotics. And then prebiotic foods. So we can't overlook this. So these are the foods that feed the fermented, or that feed the probiotics. The prebiotics feed the probiotics. And so garlic, onions, jicama, which is great, especially as a snack, Jerusalem artichokes, carrots, all of these are really good. Okay, so these are the foundational things, just kind of checking off, making sure. And I didn't get into like foods to eliminate and stuff like that, because we have to, for a lot of people, focus on lowering stress in the body and deciding, okay, what can we actually add in? And so if you're just taking out more and more foods, but you're still not eating enough, you're not balancing blood sugar, you're not getting those probiotic rich foods, you're not eating in a rest and digest state, then you're still not going to see long-term relief. So yes, you could experiment with removing obviously processed foods, processed refined flour, gluten, sugars, things like that. I don't recommend doing artificial sugars of any kind. If you are doing sweeteners, you're doing real sweeteners like raw honey, maple syrup, things like that. So not getting too much into that, but with our clients, we totally customize this, right? We say like, these are all the foods to add in. These are kind of some foods to crowd out. If you have been eating them, thinking that they're healthy, then we can get rid of some of those foods. And we teach this in our group programs as well. So just something to keep in mind, to be mindful of there, that we're not going too much into, but it is still relevant. So, okay, let's do the actual tools. I think this will be helpful for you if you're like, I've tried all these things, still haven't pinpointed the root cause, but I know that I'm doing a lot of the foundational stuff. Castor oil packs, this is really supportive for your liver. This was one of the biggest game changers for me. So castor oil packs, I like the brand Queen of Thrones because it's not messy at all. It comes with this nice little pack that you can put over your liver, but castor oil, it's a very healing oil. So you just put it on the pack and then you put it on your skin. And I do it while I sleep, so you could do it overnight, or you could just do it for like an hour during the day. But it can be kind of messy, so you don't want to be like doing a lot of things. But that castor oil pack, especially on your liver, is going to be really supportive for your liver. And so it can help not only with daily bowel movements, but also it helps a lot with those estrogen dominant symptoms, because we're trying to get rid of that excess estrogen. Mineral mocktails. Again, I said castor oils were a big game changer, but this one was actually a bigger game changer. So vitamin C, especially, so from like fresh squeezed orange juice, camu powder, beets, you could do beet powder. These are going to be really good for stimulating your digestive system. So the classic adrenal mocktail is basically fresh orange juice, sea salt, Redmond sea salt, and then some sort of fat. So I like to use coconut milk or cream. And then also you can do a source of potassium, which cream of tartar is actually a really great source of potassium. But you could also do like coconut water. So just playing around with that. Also, you could do Jigsaw's adrenal cocktail. It has all of this stuff. It's a powder mix. So you just mix it with a little bit of fresh OJ, and I put a little bit of coconut cream in there to blend it all up. I also really like Jigsaw's pickleball, which is higher in potassium. So that one is really, really helpful as well. And I also add a pinch of sea salt to that. So it's just different combinations of potassium, sodium, magnesium, vitamin C. I like the Mag Soothe powder from, I think it might be Jigsaw as well. So you can add a scoop of that. Bumble root is another great powder. Trying to think of some other ones. You could also just do classic coconut water plus a little bit of sea salt. That's great. And then especially for constipation, you can add aloe juice, which is another tip below. So these are just some different ideas for how to mix and match with these mineral mocktails, but getting potassium, sodium, magnesium, vitamin C in different combos is going to be really helpful. Even just adding, honestly, just like regular water plus some Redmond sea salt, that can make a huge difference. So never drink water alone. Always add some sort of mineral to help with the hydration and absorption. Raw carrot salad. This one is also a double whammy because it helps with getting rid of excess estrogen. So the recipe for this, you could also Google raw carrot salad estrogen detox or something like that, or Ray Peat, which is the guy who invented it. You could, I don't know how you spell his last name. I think it's like this. I think it's Ray Peat. You can search that. So you basically are going to do shredded carrots, mix some sort of vinegar in there. Apple cider vinegar is the one that I use. Pinch of sea salt, and then some sort of fat. So I either will use liquid coconut oil or a little bit of avocado oil. You could also do olive oil as well. Mix that together. It's like a nice little salad. And you can eat that on an empty stomach. And again, that binds to estrogen and helps carry it out of the body. So that's a good thing to add in daily. Digestive bitters with meals. This is a really, really great way to support, in addition to having good meal hygiene, first and foremost, taking digestive bitters before meals. This is second best to doing, like, actually prioritize this over doing a lot of supplements. This is going to help to stimulate those digestive juices, so stomach acid and enzymes. I like a brand called Wise Woman. If you are on Fullscript as one of our clients, then you can order through Fullscript. You'll see that on there. But it's basically a little tincture. You can add it to water, take that right before meals, like 10-15 minutes. Or you can just take it out of the tincture, put it in your mouth. That's what I do. And that helps a lot. You can also do bitter foods. So dandelion greens are great. I like to do dandelion tea, and I'll sip on that a little bit before meals and sometimes after meals as well. Arugula is another example of a bitter food, and then citrus. Vinegar too, apple cider vinegar is also great. All right, and then aloe vera juice, you want to get the inner leaf. This is really helpful for constipation, a great tool that we like to use. So I add this to adrenal cocktails all of the time. Really just 3 to 4 ounces kind of does the trick there. And then this one, definitely a tool. You don't want to rely on it too much, but this Cascara Sagrada, it's kind of hard to say, but this can support motility. So it's basically a powder. Rose Mountain is a good brand of this if you want to look it up. I'm sure there's brands on Amazon too. Just make sure you check the reliability of it. But you can use this in the evening before bed, and it'll help to stimulate a bowel movement in the morning. So this is kind of like a last resort. If you haven't gone to the bathroom in a few days, then I would recommend doing this. So some tools. I hope these helped. Again, more advanced examples, because we have to look at these foundational things first and foremost. And of course, we have to go back to, like, what is the root cause? Why are these things happening in the first place? So I hope this is helpful for you. And if you want more support with this, definitely do not hesitate to reach out. You can apply to work with us one-on-one, and we'll customize a plan to support your digestion and all of the other symptoms that go along with having constipation and digestive issues. We can look also at further testing if necessary after addressing these foundations, and just support you in adding in these nourishing foods, figuring out what it looks like realistically for your day-to-day, and being able to guide you and educate you and support you through that process. So I hope this is helpful, and I will hopefully talk to you soon. Bye.